The last 6 months has shown me that the Sony A7IV has definitely earned its title as the best hybrid cinema camera. So this is my 6-month review of the Sony A7IV. What's up, nerds? Welcome back to the channel. If you're new here, I talk about cameras, gear, and filmmaking stuff. So I smashed the purchase button on the Sony A7IV about 6 months ago, and I've been using it as my main camera for my personal projects, my work, and YouTube since then. I also got a Sigma 24-70 2.8 with it, which I'll get into later. So if you've been watching my channel, I bought a Fuji X-T4 a while back, and that was a fantastic camera. It had great color science, it took good photos, it was great video. I really just loved the aspect of the film emulations that they implemented into that camera, and it's still a fantastic camera. But I sold it after only owning it for about 2 months. That was mostly because I wanted to get back into full frame, see what all the hype was about, because there's really been some amazing improvements with full frame, but throughout time I haven't really realized enough of a difference to jump from Micro Four Thirds or Super 35 all the way to full frame. But I did see an opportunity when I saw this A7IV for sale online, used, and it was a really good deal. In fact, it came with the Sigma 24-70, and I paid less than $3,000 for the combo. Now, to go into this video, I am gonna be telling you my experiences over the last 6 months, what I like about this camera, what I don't like about this camera, and I will be talking about the photo and video capabilities of this camera and my impressions of it. I do have timestamps down below just in case you're looking for specifics, but buckle up because this video could be a little long. So please take this video for a grain of salt because, you know, every situation is different. Every content creator is different. What I do may be different from you. Take my advice for whatever you need it. For the video capabilities, you do have 7K, which is downsampled to 4K. I did notice a difference, especially comparing it to the A7S III, is that you do notice that the A7IV is slightly sharper. For the photo capabilities, we got a 33 megapixel sensor on here. For video, we get up to 4K 60, which I know everyone's saying it's 4K 60 cropped. Yes, I know, but I'll get into that in a second. You also get HD up to 120 frames per second in 8-bit, unless you use S&Q mode, which will get you to 10-bit at HD 120 frames per second. On the body, we have a lot more functional dials here, including a custom dial, and the EV dial is now converted into a custom dial. This will look extremely similar to the A7S III, other than the fact that similar to the Fuji X-T4, we have separate photo and video settings that you can change in the menu, as well as S&Q mode, which I love switching in between all of those. We do have a flippy dippy articulating screen that is fully touchscreen. Compared to the A7 III, we have a full HDMI. Thank you. I don't know why that hasn't been a thing forever. I also have a cage from Small Rig that I love to throw on this camera. I just like to have it on there so, you know, it's protected and it looks really cool. We also have crazy speedy Sony autofocus and a 10 out of 10 image stabilization, which does have a slight crop, but I'll get into that. Now that the specs are out of the way, let's talk about what I've liked in this camera. Number one for me is the ergonomics. This thing is really nice to hold. It gives me a good firm grip. I feel like comfortable enough to hold it like this, even with 2 fingers or 1. It just feels really good. And all the buttons that you can customize in here, I've gone through and customized every single one to my liking. The autofocus, I have to be careful here because I love it, but I have a love-hate relationship with it. There are some amazing settings and customizations with this camera when it comes to autofocus. It has smooth cinema transitions similar to an AC, as well as settings to be able to dial that in exactly how you want. It also has eye autofocus, face detection, and animal eye autofocus. Don't know when I'd use that, but okay. I have had a couple of gripes, mostly with event coverage and weddings. I was recently putting together a wedding that I just sent to the client today, actually. There were a lot of shots where clearly the bride's face was in the shot, and I had it set to eye autofocus detection, and I felt like I had my settings dialed in pretty well, and the Sigma is a very fast lens, and it's native, so I'm not using an adapter or anything like that. I would find myself having to touch the touchscreen to adjust the focus back to the bride's face because very often it would focus on the back of people's heads. Now, I don't know why the camera was doing that, but in a fair amount of my shots, that was happening. So in a wedding that I actually shot a few weeks ago, I 100% went to manual focus, which for those types of settings where there's gonna be a lot of faces, gonna be a lot of people, I just can't trust the camera enough to be able to lock onto a person's face and stay there. I will be using manual focus because of that factor. Now, that doesn't say the autofocus is bad. I love the autofocus. In fact, out of every camera that I have used, including Canon, Sony is by far the best autofocus system out there right now. I feel like I said that really dramatic. I didn't mean it that way. In photo, it is tack sharp and it's correct every single time. The other thing I love is the photo quality. The 33 megapixels with a full frame sensor is just unbeatable compared to a lot of cameras. The people that shoot on Micro Four Thirds and Super 35 for photo can still get a lot of really good quality out of that. But what I noticed with the X-T4 is even though it was a 26 megapixel sensor, I wasn't able to punch in as well, nor did I see the amount of detail that I see in the Sony A7 IV. It's just very sharp and does a great job. The other thing I've enjoyed using is the Wi-Fi connection. I actually use an app on my phone that's an external monitor. It was like 20 bucks to buy, but it is awesome. It shows me waveforms, it shows me false color, and gives me peaking. 99% of the time, it works flawlessly. The other thing I've liked is the detail of the 4K. That 7K downsample to 4K makes a huge difference. It is really, really sharp. I really like the placement of the record button on this camera, and especially, like I've mentioned multiple times, the separation of photo to video settings is probably my favorite feature of this camera. The image stabilization is really good and I like it, except when I'm in 4K 60. Because the 4K 60 does have a crop factor of 1.5, if you throw the image stabilization on to the full capability, it crops it even more. Normally that wouldn't be a problem, and in some cases I haven't noticed it as a problem, but it does bug me a little bit to the point that I'd rather be on a gimbal and turn off image stabilization entirely than have it on. But when I'm shooting in 4K 24, I turn on that stabilization, has a slight 1.1 crop or something like that, and it's really not that noticeable to me, and I'd rather sacrifice the 1.1 crop than not have image stabilization. The 10-bit video is a lifesaver in a lot of situations for me, especially as a colorist. I like to change things a lot. I like to work with the image, and 8-bit tends to break down very quickly. And coming from Blackmagic RAW, where that image did not break down as easily because it was 12-bit, it's nice to at least have 10-bit when switching to a camera like this to work with the image as best I can. No recording limit. Thank you. Why was that a thing? It's gone. The battery life is super good. I only have 3 batteries and I've shot 12-hour days and have not ran out of battery yet. I just love how easy it is to get creative shots with the gimbal with this camera. My Blackmagic was really hard to work with because it was such a big setup, and once I got it onto the gimbal, I was kind of limited in a lot of options because the gimbal, even though it's my RS2, was struggling. So with this, I can do a lot more things with my gimbal, and I've gotten a lot more creative with my work. All right, we're done with the things I love. Let's talk about what I didn't like. Number one, and I hate to say it because everyone says it, is the 4K 60 crop. I know everyone's complained about that, and I didn't think it would bother me as much as it does, but it really does. Now, when I was on my Blackmagic, I had an 18-35 with a speed booster. I was still getting a 24mm field of view, but with this, with that 4K 60 crop, my 24, because of the 2470, all of a sudden becomes, I think it's like a 36 or something like that. And that just, in some situations, is not wide enough for me. The next little gripe I can have is the autofocus. Like I said before, it would focus on the back of the head. So like 9 times out of 10 in video mode, it was accurate and it worked. And when I'm shooting a YouTube video like this, which, you know, this will be my main camera for future videos, but yeah, like in that situation where it's one person, it's never gonna be out of focus. You know, maybe I need to dive into the settings a little bit deeper, but that did bother me a little bit. Another thing I noticed is I've shot everything on this camera in H.265 because it is the highest codec you can get at the smallest file size, and you have to have, you know, V90 cards to be able to work with H.264, and that H.264 takes up a lot of storage space really quick. So on a 128 gig Sony card shooting H.264, I only get about 25 minutes versus, you know, a V60 card shooting H.265, I get about 2 hours of footage at 4K 60. So that was a little frustrating to me, and I ended up shooting everything in H.265 for that reason alone. And most of the problems do come in editing, which has been mentioned on YouTube quite a bit, is that H.265 is a very harsh codec for editing softwares. Now the silicon chip is starting to work better with that codec, but I have a souped up $4,000 PC, which I'm making a video about that. So, but even with that, it runs pretty well, but every once in a while it will stutter. But yeah, those large file sizes and the fact that I can only get like 30 minutes out of a 128 gig card is something that I need to figure out how to maintain that. So I'm working on it. Now this camera has never overheated on me once. There were 2 situations where I did get an overheating warning, but then when I pulled out the screen, it went away. And when I let it sit for just a second, you know, maybe like 2 or 3 minutes, then it went away as well. So I also had a setting on that increased what the camera can withstand as far as overheating, but there have been a lot of situations with the A7S III, the FX3, and other Sony cameras that people have mentioned that camera overheating quite a bit. But with this, like I said, it's never actually overheated on me. I've just seen that signal a couple times. But I do want to say, like, if you're considering buying this camera over the A7S III, because I was in that situation, I really had to decide what I was doing. And like I said, I'm doing both photo and video. So I needed a hybrid camera, and I felt like I was going to be able to get away with the 12 megapixels that are on the A7S III. But I did make a couple sacrifices in the video world in order to get better photo capabilities. So you kind of have to just consider what is your main line of work, how are you going to be using that camera, and then make your decision. I've had to exercise extreme restraint to not rig this thing out. The furthest I've gone with this camera is putting a cage and a handle on it, and I'm even trying to hold back from getting a monitor, a follow focus, and like rails, and because the reason I bought this camera is for being spontaneous, lightweight, and fast, and making it a bigger rig is not gonna allow me to do that. As far as lenses go, I'm keeping the 24-70 for more on-the-go type of stuff, but I have been looking into the SLR Magic Cine lenses because I'd love to do more manual focus lenses on this camera. I would also love to try vintage lenses on this, which I am trying this weekend, so I'll update you on that. I think this camera was kind of made for me, or the type of filmmaker that I am specifically. Definitely for people that like to do higher end style type of work, make it look really good, but maybe not have the budget for renting higher end cine cameras, cine lenses, and just have to use something on the go. Also for the person that takes photo and video. But if you need to impress your clients, this is not it. Buy like an FX9, buy an FX6, or buy more cine style cameras, because that is going to impress your client a lot more than this will. So I know I haven't been around for several months. I've not posted a video in a while, but I do have a lot of plans in the work for this channel, and I plan to try and commit to a more consistent schedule and bring better quality content to you guys, because I really do enjoy doing this. This is fun. I like talking about gear. I like talking about cameras. So if you're still here, thanks for sticking around. This is an amazing camera for run and gun work. It is the perfect hybrid camera out there, and I'm really happy that I bought it, and I'm excited to keep using it. Guys, I really want to know what you think about this camera down below. Do you like it? Do you not like it? Let me know. So go ahead and hit that like button if you enjoyed watching this video, and don't forget to subscribe and hit that bell button so you never miss out on new young filmmaker content. Good luck filmmaking.